So we are imperfect people. If anyone here thinks that they're perfect, can I see your hand? Put your hand up. No. There are no perfect people. We are imperfect people saved by grace. And you know, it's so amazing because the Lord found us. We didn't go looking for him. He handpicked each one of us here today. We were living our lives. We were living in sin. We were enjoying sin. We were looking for sin. I can see some real people here that are nodding their heads. They are nodding their heads because that's where we've been. We were living and looking for sin. We were not looking for righteousness. We were not looking for holy lives. And yet in the midst of that, somehow the Lord handpicked us and he found us. He found us in our deepest, darkest hour of our lives. My husband always says, I was looking for sin. I was looking for the next sin when the Lord found him and with a bullet through his head. But that's another story. So I know today as I stand here that the Lord handpicked me. He handpicked me and put a call of God upon my life in all my imperfection. And I'm honored. I'm honored to be here today. I'm honored to share my life with you. I'm honored to be a part of the family because God's family is a huge family. It's not you and your fellowship and you and all these people. We are a family. God unites our hearts. He brings us together. And it's the most wonderful family that we could ever wish to be in. I was teasing your husband today, Peter. I was chatting to him because they were with us in Hillcrest, at Kloof. And I said, you see, Pete, you ran to Howick, eh? But we came here, we found you again. Because somewhere our hearts are linked. Somewhere in the spirit. It's a forever thing. You know, we might have our differences, we might disagree with many things, but somehow when God unites and links hearts, it's a forever thing. And it's a love that you can't comprehend. It's incomprehensible. You know, and God, the Lord goes from the rich and the poor and the weak and the strong and the black and the white, and he just puts everybody together. And it's a miracle. It's a supernatural miracle. And I'm happy to be a part of God's church and God's family. So just, I'm going to condense my life here. I came to know the Lord here in Durban. My uncle, some of you might have heard of him. He used to be, he's passed now, was George Dillman, and he had a church in Durban called Living Waters. And I was, as I said, not looking for living waters, you know. And I was not looking for salvation. I was on holiday with my very Italian Catholic boyfriend. And I was brought up in the Methodist church and didn't know about salvation at all. Anyway, we were in Durban, and so of course we had contact with my cousins and my uncle and my aunt, and we thought it would be nice, it would be the done thing to go to church on Sunday, you know, and to be the good cousin. So I went, and that was the appointed time of God for my life. I think I was about 19, and I remember sitting in the auditorium at the top there, and Pastor Dillman was sharing just a pure, unadulterated gospel of Jesus Christ. Coming to know salvation, knowing that you're a sinner, that God died for you. And it was just like, it was me. The Lord just was speaking to me that day. And I remember my heart began to, just thunder. And I said to my boyfriend, I want to go up. And he said, don't be stupid, sit in your chair, you know. Just behave yourself. And then again, I felt that prompting. And I said to him, why don't you come with me? And he said, look, I've tried that before, it doesn't work. So I thought, shush, okay. And anyway, so it was the first time I'd heard the message of salvation. First time. And before I knew it, I was walking down the stairs to the front, kneeling and weeping before God. And how I got there, I don't know. But that was the day I met the Lord. And that was back in the 70s. And that's when I encountered, salvation, confessed my sins, confessed my life, and it was the beginning, because salvation is not putting up your hand. Salvation is not, I want to serve Jesus. Salvation is not a quality decision. Salvation is a miracle of God. Salvation is when your whole life changes. Nothing stays the same. You don't, today you're Tanner, and tomorrow you're still Tanner, and same old Tanner, and same old Tanner, but we love God and hallelujah. It's not like that. when you ask God sincerely and genuinely into your heart, a supernatural miracle takes place. And that's why today in the church, in the 80s was a great revival. And people you could preach something and everybody came to the front and responded. People loved the Lord. You didn't have to beg them to come to home church. You didn't have to phone people to come to a prayer meeting. They were just there. There was something in the spirit that was happening. And young people were just on fire for God. And it was a move of the Lord in the early 80s. And now today, you have to beg people. Come to church, come to a meeting. We haven't seen you, sister, for weeks. Where have you been? Busy, my life, It's not that passion, that drive, that fire just to serve God. And we had that. And as a young person that loved God, I had that. Then I met, just shortly after, and I came from a very happy, secure home, very open, We always had people in our home. No hang-ups, no insecurities or anything like that. And then a few years later, I met my husband. And I was not looking to get married. I wasn't, that type that, I must look for a husband, and pray every day for a husband. I wasn't that person. I was quite secure in who I was, and, I had lots of friends. And my dad worked for the government, and he said to me, listen, Kath, don't be like us who've battled all our lives, And he felt very happy that most of my friends were doctors, dentists, lawyers, accountants, financial directors, and one of these lovely boys one day, my Kath is going to marry one of them. It didn't happen like that. So anyway, then I remember it was must have been 1980, and Rhema Ministries had just been launched in South Africa, and they were having a camp. So my friend and I said, Rhema Corley had come from America, and my friend and I said, let's go to the camp, So that's what we were doing. And my husband today had come down from Zimbabwe, and he was sharing his testimony. And just briefly, you'll meet him if you come to church tomorrow. Don't forget Hoppers 8. Hoppers 8, yeah. And my husband will be sharing. And she didn't tell me to tell you that. I'm just telling you. And he's got a very powerful testimony because he was shot during the Rhodesian War. And he took a bullet straight through his head. And he had a death experience where he left his body, he died. He went through the tunnel. The Lord spared his life. He was an absolute scabanger, wheeling and dealing in the drug world and you name it. And the God spared his life, and he had a great salvation and a great conversion 2 years later. Anyway, so then he came to South Africa, and he was sharing his testimony at all these Michael House, Kersley, Hilton, St. Stithians, and he would come and share his life of being at school, and then his rugby days, athletics days, army days, drug days, and then being shot, and then coming to the Lord. So a friend of mine had heard his testimony, and she said to me, Kath, there's this guy from Zimbabwe, and he was shot in the head, and he's got a powerful ministry, and you must come and listen to his testimony. And I was like, whatever, not really interested in that. And then she went again, and she told me the same thing again. She said, no, you must come and listen, it's powerful. I said, I've got my own life, I don't need all this funny business. Anyway, the next Sunday, I remember I arrived at church, parked my car in front of me, and I saw this young man of 26 getting out of a car with a walking stick, because he's triplegic. And he had this long, pitch black hair, tan, he had his aviator glasses. I was looking at him and I thought, shame, man, it's a tragedy. He's so young and so good looking, and it's just awful, And I think, this must be the guy my friend's telling me about. This is terrible. Anyway, so I went and I sat down, and just waiting, for things to happen. And the next thing, here he comes, walking with his stick, with the guys that he was in church with. He sat right in front of me. And so I had no option but to see him. And so he was totally consumed and captivated, just worshipping the Lord, praising the Lord. It was just him and Jesus in that entire place. And I was so like, my Christian friends and my Christian boyfriends were all half-baked. They loved God, they were in the world, they were carnal, There was not much difference. And I always in my heart wanted to marry someone that loved the Lord with a passion that I could trust, and that was the real deal. That was in the depth of my heart, that was my cry. Anyway, so I watched him. And then, it was about 2 weeks later, we had a family camp. And on this camp, Basil came on the camp, and I was on the camp as well. And it was in a meeting like this, and I was sitting here, and he was there. And again, all I could see was this young man that was just lost in the presence of God, with his disability, with a huge disability. And, you know, I mean, his life came to a standstill, you can imagine, a complete standstill. He was a year in hospital, had to learn everything again. And at that stage, he still had quite a speech impediment, you know, from the brain injury. And again, I watched him, and I just thought, it's not possible to love someone like this man loves you. You know, you can't touch the Lord, you can't feel him, you can't see him, you know. And yet he was just in the moment. And I remember thinking, how much this young man loves God. It blew me away. And often people have said to me, tell me about how you and Baz met. And this is what I'm sharing with you. How did you meet? You know, were you like madly in love? Were you passionate about each other? Did you date? No, none of that. It never happened, you know. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But I fell in love with the Jesus in him. I can tell you that. I fell in love with the Jesus in him. He was from Zimbabwe, I was from South Africa, I knew nothing about his life, nothing about his past, nothing about his friends, we had no history. He had his life, I had my life. But somehow, the Lord put us together. And it's only years later how I've seen how the Lord handpicked me, okay? Anyway, the story's not finished yet, eh? Anyway, so then we got married, well, shortly after that, eh? Not long after that at all. And then I had a beautiful son who's in ministry in America. He's married with a little boy of 8, 9 months who we haven't met yet. And they're in ministry affiliated with us. And then I had my beautiful daughter, and she's married to a wonderful man of God. And they've got a little girl of 8, Katie. So those are my greatest gifts, because they both serve the Lord passionately, their families. There's no compromise in their lives. And it's just wonderful to see that today with young people. And so people will say to me, you know, but you've got nothing in the bank and, you know, nothing fancy. And I have to tell them, but you don't understand. I am one of the most wealthy women on planet Earth today, because my family know the Lord, really know the Lord. And honestly, for a mother to say that today, it's a great treasure. It's a treasure that you can never ever buy. You can never put a price on that. Your children knowing, loving, and serving God. And it's our duty to really pray and to trust God for our youngsters and our grandchildren as well. And then, some years later, we were under the ministry of Durban Christian Centre, and we were Bulawayo Christian Centre, because now I lived in Zimbabwe. And so we were Bulawayo Christian Centre, and Dr. Fred Roberts, the late Dr. Fred Roberts, was our oversight. And he came to Zimbabwe to ordain Basil and myself into the ministry as a young couple, and also to open the church. We had a beautiful church there, and he came to kind of open the church. And Dr. Fred Roberts had just come off a 40-day fast, and he was pumping. I mean, it was something, and you could feel something happening in the meetings. And that night he prayed for Basil, and then he came to pray for me. And I didn't understand it back then, but over the years, it's become it's what I live, what I've lived, you know. And he prayed, and he said to me, because people say, why did you marry Basil? You know, you could have picked anybody. You married a man that had $10 in his bank, a little car with some stuff in the boot, and a major disability. Why did you marry him? You know, what did you profit? And sometimes I shook my head, and I think, I don't know. But I'm still shaking my head. But honestly, Dr. Roberts came and he prayed over my life as a young girl. I must have been 24. And he said, tonight, the Lord would say unto you, have I not given unto you a grace? But it is not just a grace. It is a great grace. For that which you have chosen is not of yourself, it is of me, saith the Lord. And I'm thinking, wow, I didn't choose this. This is the plan of God for my life. And somewhere he will give me a great grace to accompany this hard, difficult road that I'm going to face and have to walk on. Because let me tell you, it was not a bed of roses. It was not fluffy clouds. Life is not fluffy clouds. If anyone thinks life is fluffy clouds and roses, you're very deceived. It's not. Life is tough and life is hard. And today's world is getting harder and darker and more evil. And we need to be alert and awake. And we need to serve God in these days like never before. And not to be afraid to speak and to proclaim what he's done in our lives and our hearts and what he's going to continue to do. So that was for me something incredible. And over the years, I thought, it's like the Lord gives us wells that are so deep, and we can dig deep into those wells of great grace when we need to. And in my life, I've had to dig deep many, many times. And I love the scripture, 2 Corinthians, this one's for you, Cara. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 9 says, my grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness, or my weaknesses, because that's who we are, so that the power of Christ can work through me and rest upon me. And we need that. We need to know that it's only by his grace. And then a little while ago, I was at the Kruger Park with a great friend of mine, and we were driving for hours and hours. And again, she was like, what was it, with you and Baz, all those years ago, And then I thought about it again, and I said, and I shared that with her. I said, no, Fred Roberts had come and he prayed about the great grace and how it was not me that chose that road, it was somehow that God had ordained that road for me. And somewhere I feel I'm being handpicked. And she looked at me, and we'd shared a lot, because now we're driving for hours in the car, looking for animals, so we just chat. And I shared with her a lot about our walk in the ministry. And I'll share a little bit on that as well. But, and then she said to me, Kath, it's strange that you share that with me, because just yesterday I was thinking to myself, I believe that God, and I've really shared my heart and my life with her. She knows all my flaws, my warts, everything. She said, I believe somewhere God handpicked you to take care of a disabled man of God and to serve a disabled man of God. Because I can tell you it's not easy, I don't wish it on anybody. You have got to know that the Lord is with you daily, because Basil is not just, a pushover. He's a strong, charismatic man. And when he was young, he was strong, and he had a ministry, and people loved him, and he was magnetic, and he had a powerful testimony. And in our early days in Bulawayo, men of God used to come to Zimbabwe, and they used to try and entice us to come here to South Africa or America or somewhere. And they'd say, Basil, what are you doing in Bulawayo? You're wasting your life. Your life is wasted in Bulawayo. You've got such a powerful testimony. Come and run my youth group. Come and be part of my ministry. Come, we'll put the red carpet out for you. Go to America. They'll put the red carpet out for you, Baz. After once, twice you've been there, you come back, you buy your first house. Cash.
Sure.
And I used to think, what? Is this the ministry? And Basil has been such a man of integrity from day one that he served the Lord. He said, brothers, I'm not here to share my life, to get money, to buy houses and cars and farms. I'm here for souls and nothing else. Just sinners. Give me sinners. The bigger the sinner, the more excited Basil is. He just, give me sinners, He's got an evangelical heart. So, being in the ministry, we've been married 40 years now. And we've been in the ministry 40 years. So you've still got a few years, And let me tell you, it's not an easy road. Don't think the ministry, and I tell the young girls in church, I want to marry an elder. You don't want to marry an elder. No, in the ministry. No, you don't want to be in the ministry. Oh, but Keegan and Liesel, that's my son, they have such an incredible life. Muffy and Rish. No, you don't. Because there's a high price to pay. And elders' wives are not perfect, let me tell you what. We are nowhere near perfect. We try our best, and we fail bleakly. Bleakly. So, let me just see where we are. Yeah, so with serving the Lord, as I said before, it's not roses and flowers and floating around with angel wings. It doesn't exist. Those are in books and fairy tales. So with serving the Lord, then we left South Africa. I was born in South Africa all my life, and then married and went to Zimbabwe. And I thought I was a missionary. I thought I was a missionary going to deepest, darkest Africa. And also, when we got married, I didn't know we were going in the ministry, because I saw my cousins at the Living Waters Full Gospel Church, and I thought, being born again is one thing, but being in the ministry, that's another thing. So it was not something I was looking for at all. Now Basil's, called of God, and now I must go and run the youth group in Willoware, and now I'm married, I must go with, of course. So that's what we did. Anyway, they were wonderful, wonderful years. We started in the youth ministry, then assistant pastors, and then, one thing led to the next. But all during that time, there were tests, and there were trials, and there were misunderstandings, and there were relationships that were tested and broken. Oh, it was just hectic. And disappointments, huge disappointments, because you think men of God, they're perfect, they're wonderful. We put them up here on a pedestal. And when they fall, what happens? You're going to fall with him. You cannot put anybody on a pedestal. You cannot. And I've always said to people, please, guys, listen. I might have gone to Rhema Bible School, but I'm not the vice president, because we were brought up that there was the president, of the church, and then the vice president, she was the wife. I'm no vice president. I'm never going to be a vice president. I'm not the elder's wife. I'm not the pastor's wife. I'm just Kathy. That's who I want to be. And if you can love me and accept me for just who I am, then that's fantastic. I just want to be that person. I want to be able to give my best, be real. But in our early days, it was really, really tough. And there was great expectation upon our lives. And, take the ladies' meeting, run the youth, sing the songs, do everything. And let me tell you, I could do everything, but I didn't want to. It's not what I had in my heart to do. Some people used to say to me, you preach better than Baz, because, you clear, you start at A, you go to there, and then you finish at Z, and it's wonderful, because those are just natural abilities. But God doesn't want our natural abilities. He wants more than that. And so I didn't, if I wanted to lead something or be involved in something, it was because I wanted to do it, not because I'm forced to do it. And so, so there were a lot of expectations and many disappointments that we experienced as young people in the ministry. And unfortunately, because we had our eyes up there, on other men of God who we respected and honored, and with it came many heartaches. And then some years after that, and trust, you trust as a young person, you trust your life with men and women of God. And that's what you want to do, And in fact, there's a lady coming to church tomorrow. She lives here in Howick. And she was in our church in Bulawayo. She was a bit older than me, so she's probably in her 70s now. And I love her dearly. And she couldn't be here today because she's playing bowls. And she said to me, she moved from Bulawayo to South Africa. And I used to share my heart with her. Also your husband's in the ministry, you don't know who to share with. You don't know what to share. You don't know if it's in a safe place. You don't know if it's going to be twisted. You don't want to speak about your husband because you don't want to bad name him, because everyone thinks he's marvelous, but he's not. They're not married to him, So you don't know what to share or who to share with, or even if you should be sharing. And this lady, we had such a beautiful relationship. She reached out to me as a young woman. And when she left, she said, Kath, I want you to promise me that when I go, you will find someone, just one person. That's all you need, one person that you can share your heart with, that you can be vulnerable with, that you can be transparent with, you can be real with, because you need it, even more so in the ministry. And I said, yes, now I will. And I never did, to my own detriment. I kept my life. I held my life. I protected my life. I protected my husband. I protected everything to my detriment and paid a price for it. And then it was some years later, and the ministry was pumping. Church was packed. Conferences, people. My house was never empty, but like yours, huh? Just like yours. And I just came to the place where I'd never felt so lonely in all my life. Never felt so lonely. My children had their lives. You know, they were now growing up. Keegan was, I think he was in Mauritius building the church. Cara as well. They were growing up. They had their lives to live. And I'd never felt so lonely among so many people. And restless. And just, I felt I have no voice. I have no voice anymore. My husband doesn't hear me. Nobody hears me, you know. Whatever I've got to say is irrelevant anyway. When I was tired, well, you can't be tired, you must just suck it up and, you know. And so I just kind of withdrew and loved the Lord in the depth of my heart. But just thought, gosh, if I could get out of here. I'm young enough to start another life. I could start another life tomorrow, like this. And you know, the enemy comes, eh? And he knows exactly where your little vulnerabilities are, where your weak spots are, where he can just get you. And he came. And I took my life into my own hands, completely. And I thought, you know what? I'm not a mother in the house. I'm not a wife in the house. I'm just a sister. I don't want to be a sister. There are a lot of sisters here in the church and in my house. No. I became, this is how I felt. And I just thought, I just need a break. I need a break. I deserve a break. And so I had a friend in Joburg and said, hey, you know, I've got a lovely house here. You can come stay here, be free, do what you like. And I thought, well, I can go 2 weeks. Just go and live my life for 2 weeks. 2 weeks turned into 2 years. 2 years that the enemy had me away from my home, from my marriage, and from my church. And I can tell you, it was a hard road. It was a painful one. It was a lying deception from the enemy. You take your life into your own hands, you pay a very, very deep price. My daughter got married during that time. I went to her wedding, but I could not look at her photo album for 2 years. It was too painful, because I really wasn't a part of it. I was in the picture, but I was not a part of a mother and a daughter that I dreamt of, giving my daughter a beautiful wedding. And I commuted between Joburg and the UK. My sister was living in the UK, so I would go and do caring, because I knew all about caring. I was just never being paid for it. Now I was earning pounds, you know. So, and I hated it. I mean, I would just think, pounds. That's all I could think about to keep me going, you know. And there were times when I just thought, Lord, take your hand off my life, please. Just give me a break, Lord. And when I prayed those prayers, the hand of God pressed down harder on my life. Because you cannot run from the call of God on your life. You can run, you can hide, you can do what you like. But when God's hand picked you for something, He will never let you go. Thank God for that. When I think of where I could have landed up, but thankfully, the grace of God hovered over me like this. There were days when I wept so deeply, it was like a death. It was like grieving for somebody, you know. And there were consequences, deep consequences that I had to pay over that time. My son got married as well during that time. And so, yeah, it was huge prices to pay. And so as I was saying, so the hand of God pressed down harder on my life when I cried to Him to just give me a window. Please, Lord, you know, just let me do my thing and then I can come back, you know, which many people do. And I didn't have that privilege. The Lord just pressed harder. The conviction became harder. My heart became broken. And I knew I couldn't run from God. And I didn't want to run from God anymore. I didn't want to run from my family. I didn't want to run from the call of God. And I saw my son on the odd occasion, and he said to me, Mom, just come home. Just come home. Because you are the 50% that Dad is not. And you are the 50% that the church has been robbed of. You've got to come home. I'm like, oh, Keegan, you don't know my life, you know. And he used to beg me, just come home, come home. And then there was a conference taking place. And he said to me, Mom, and it was a supernatural conference, I remember this clearly. I'd heard, you know, because I still had friends that were talking a little bit to me. And I was cut off completely. And he said to me, Mom, there's a conference taking place on the island of Mauritius. And there's incredible things taking place. And it's a time of restoration. Why don't you go, Mom? God's going to meet you there. And I'm talking about a young man. How old was Keegan then? Married? No, was he married? Yeah, he just got married. So he was 25? 26? And I said, no, I'm not going, you must be joking. And, you know, I'm the pastor's wife and I've let everybody down and I'm like a leper. And he said, Mom, just go. And God was doing this in my heart and my life. And I want you to know what I'm sharing with you today, I've not shared in 10 years. It's something I don't share. I share one-on-one with people that I need to share with, that I know I need to share with. I never share like this. And it's just recently that I felt somehow the Lord wants me to share my life and to be raw about my life. Because so many people are in so many difficult situations and desperate situations, and they don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk to because they think their problem is much bigger than. There's no problem too big. There's nothing that shocks anybody, you know. And I was sharing. My sister-in-law has been with me for a month, and this is my sister-in-law's best friend sitting here with a yellow jersey. Everyone, this is Jill Ferguson. She moved down from Zimbabwe a year ago to Howick, and my sister-in-law Gail has been with us for a month. Her life has been turned upside down by the people in the church, by the love, by the reality of what we live, who we are, the fact that we're just so real and we love God and, you know, you don't have to be perfect and the relationships are very strained. And I was sharing with her one of her other best friends. Do you know Paula? So Paula's brother, we had dinner with him and his wife. And they were sitting here in front of me and I was here, we were sharing. And I was sharing my life. And I'm thinking, I've known Gail for 40 years. But she doesn't know anything really about my life. And while I'm sharing, the two of them are weeping. Just weeping. And the lady with her says, you know, I'm one of the head counselors at our church. It's a huge church in Hillcrest. And I would love for you to come share with our ladies. Do you do that? So I said, not really. You know, she said, well, I would love you. I'd love you to come and share with all our ladies, because I know they will be blessed. So I thought, maybe, you know. And then I shared with somebody in our church, one of the young girls. And she said, but I've never heard your testimony. Can't we have a ladies' team? Can't we do a ladies' team? And I'm thinking, it's true. I have not really shared in so many years, you know, because I just kind of protect and you know, but when you've walked something and you've gone through it and the restoration's taken place and there's joy and happiness and everything, you can share. But when you're in the midst of it, you can't share. Anyway, so now my son says, Mom, please come on, please, Mom, please come to the conference. So I said to him, well, why did you come with me? He said, I must come with you, but I haven't got any money more. So I said, I'll buy your ticket. Boy, I tell you, he grabbed the thing. 2 tickets booked, Mom. Then I'm thinking, what have I done? Knowing that my husband's there at the conference already. Anyway, so I go to the conference with my son, and I'm very feeling a bit out of place, and everyone's been so nice, and blah, blah, blah. And on about the third night, I remember it so clearly. I remember I had a pair of white linen bell bottoms and a white blouse, and I looked like an angel. I remember it so clearly. And I stood kind of near the back, and during the meeting, my husband goes up onto the stage. Now, Basil can hardly walk, eh? He goes up onto the stage with my son, and the two of them are standing on the stage. And he begins to share. And he begins to bring his heart to me. And he says in front of 4,000 people from all over the world, he says, tonight, I want to ask my wife to forgive me. She left me 2 years ago, but I left her in my heart long before that. And you know, it was like unbelievable. I remember jumping out my seat and just running to the stage. Running to the stage. It was God's miracle that took place. The entire church wept. The entire church wept. And we embraced, and Keegan cried, and Basil cried, and I cried, and we all shared our hearts, and we repented. And I, from the stage, asked the pastor and his wife to forgive me, especially the wife. I said, I hold so much in my heart towards you. I want to ask you tonight to forgive me. I don't want to be a prisoner in my own heart. I want to be free. I want to drop my weapons. You know, we carry weapons, huge weapons, against people and against leadership and elders' wives, because they're not who we want them to be. So we just have some weapons. We just go a little bit God, you know. And when we can use our weapons, boy, we bring them out quickly, And we have to duck Nadine, every now and again. It's not so hard for you now with your foot like that. It's so easy. But I promise you, and I just thought, I can't carry these weapons any longer. I don't want to be at war. I don't want to be a prisoner. You know, other people are free, but you're a prisoner because you're holding things in your heart and your life against someone. They don't even know. Sometimes people come to you and they say, oh, Chantal, will you forgive me? You say, what else I forgive you for? Oh, this, and you don't even know. But it's true, and it's in the church. Believe it or not, it's in the church of God, and there's a lot of it. And that's not the heart of God. You know, the Lord wants, and as men of God and as women of God, we want to be free to be who we are. We have to be free to be who we are, because we're all so unique, we're so different. The call and the anointing of God in our lives is so unique and so precious. I can't be Alicia. She can't be me. My daughter and I, we are like chalk and cheese. But she has a powerful call of God on her life. Powerful. Sometimes I don't understand it. Sometimes she shakes her head at me. But you know, that is the body of Christ. That is the body of Christ. All unique, all different, blending together this wonderful, incredible family that God's created us to be. There's nothing like it on earth. And you know, some years ago, maybe 5 years ago, so this was 10 years ago that this happened. And I must have been 52 at the time, so you can work out how old I am. And it really was, it was something quite special that took place. And when we were in America 5 years ago, my son, the day we left, he took the pulpit and he addressed his church and he said, you know, tonight I want to honor my mom and my dad. He said, I really want to honor my mom and my dad because my mom and my dad have paid a high price and they took the road of the cross. They took the road of the cross. And if they hadn't, I wouldn't be here today, and neither would my sister. But he said they took and they paid a price. And when you take the road of the cross, it's not an easy road because you lose your life.
Yeah.
And if you want to hold on to your life and cling to your life and preserve your life, you're going to lose it, undoubtedly. But if you are free to give your life, surrender your life, which is what I had to do, Basil had to do, we all had to do it. We had to surrender. We had to bring our lives to the foot of the cross. To the foot of the cross, like Jesus did. He gave his life entirely. He's not holding back a little bit here and I'll just protect that and, you know, etc., etc. It's giving everything. And I knew that when I came back. I knew it was everything. All my dreams, all my aspirations, all my whatever I thought was out there that wasn't out there. At the foot of the cross. And that narrow road, to take that narrow road today. It's a very broad road. And the church walks a broad road. But the Lord wants, and he calls us to a narrow road. And to take that narrow road today, you get shunned for it. You get shunned for it. But I'm telling you, there's a wonderful reward that comes with that. So when Keegan said, I want to honor my mom and dad for the price that they've paid and for the road of the cross that they've taken, I just wept. And I just thought, wow, that's really something, and coming from your son. And it was very, very precious. And somebody once said to me as well, they said, and that beautiful scripture, Matthew 10:39, is the one, he who keeps or clings, we have to cling to our lives. We think they're so wonderful. And we will surely lose our lives. We will lose our lives. But if you lose your life, Hannah, give it all. Give your life to the Lord. You've got nothing to lose, everything to gain, everything to find, Isn't she beautiful, this lovely girl? I love her from my heart. She's going to serve God, this young woman, with all her heart. She's recently come to the Lord. It's a wonderful plan for your life, Tana. You don't even know it. God's got an incredible plan for your life. And He's got the right man for you. You don't have to look for him. You don't have to look for him. He's going to come your way. And you will know in your heart, this is the one that God has handpicked for me. So you don't have to look for him. You can be at peace. And I really believe that the Lord wants to say that to you. And somebody once said to me, Kathy, in life, sometimes certain people pay a price. It's one life, like Jesus, one life for the many. And he said to me, Kath, I have to tell you, somehow I believe, and this is a wonderful man of God that I respect with all my heart. He said to me, I believe, Kath. He didn't call me Kath, he called me Kath. He says, Kathy, I believe it's your life for the many. Don't worry about it, if you lose everything, it doesn't matter, because it's your life for the many. You will touch many lives. And that night of restoration, on that stage with 4,000 or 5,000 people, I then went to the bathroom afterwards, after exposing my life. I cannot tell you the woman that came up and said to me, and I didn't realize it then, but now I do. They came and said, thank you for sharing what you did tonight. You've given me hope for my marriage. You've given me hope for my life. You've given me hope for my children. We serve a God of the miraculous. I thought my marriage was finished, but I need to lose my life. I need to pay a price. I need to embrace something in my life to gain great value. And I was like, I'm glad my life blessed you, And it's been like that over the years. We have shared with people and they said, Kath, I promise you, thank you that you're so real. Thank you that you've walked the walk. Thank you that, you don't hide your life. You don't pretend, God's done such an incredible work in your heart, in your life. Keep it real. Just keep it real. And that is the cry of my heart, to just keep it real, to identify with people, not to be pastor's wife, We don't need that. We don't want that. In fact, we hate it. We hate it. And this whole thing of, so much law and so much, expectation and so much of everything. The church is a place where people need to come. It's a safe place. It's a place where people want to be loved and appreciated and accepted for who they are, where they are, and we walk together with the weak, because the weak will always be amongst us. And we walk with them, and we identify with them. We identify with their weaknesses, and they feel our hearts, not our scriptures. Not 20 scriptures, thus saith the Lord, you naughty girl, and this one, and we've heard that. We've all had 50 scriptures, and they don't change your life at all. You can repeat them, you can put them on your fridge, you can do what you like with them. They don't change your life. It's the reality of coming with your life to the foot of the cross in total surrender, identifying where we are, identifying with our weaknesses, with our need, our great need. We don't realize how much we need the Lord, how great the need is on a daily basis, not for this week, constantly. Today I fall, tomorrow maybe you fall, then what? We need each other, and we need to know that the grace of God is something that we can dig deep, 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 deep. And each of us have a parcel. I love this illustration where everybody has a box. I'm sure you've heard it before. A box in front of them. And my box is not your box. My box comes with Basil. Do you want my box? No, you don't. And sometimes people will say, oh, Catherine, we wish we had your life. No, you don't wish you had my life. Chantal, you don't want my life. I'm sure you don't.
You do want your wardrobe.
But it's true. We think, oh, you know, that sister, she's so blessed, eh? Such a wonderful husband, all her children serve the Lord, and everything looks so wonderful. You don't know her life. You don't know what's in her box. But I tell you what, that box that God's put in front of you, that's your box. Not your box. Your box is your box. My box is my box. And sometimes we just take the ribbon off and we look and we think, oh, no. Don't want that box. Moving on. Back to the box. Dig deep. Dig deep till you find treasure. Because there's treasure in every box. You've got to find it. You've got to look for the treasure in your box. You've got to cry to God to show you what you have and appreciate and be grateful. And dig. Keep digging in your box. And I always go back. Always go back. I'm reminded all the time. I'm reminded all the time. The grace of God upon my life is not a grace, but a great grace. For that which I've chosen is not of me, it's of Him. And He will be faithful to the end. And then just in closing, about this time last year, it was our 40th wedding anniversary. So I went into the shops in Hillcrest, I went to go and buy Basil something, and then while the lady was wrapping it up, I said, oh, I just want to go and get a card. So I went across to Cardi's, bought a 40th wedding anniversary card, came back to the shop. So she said, oh, did you find what you were looking for? So I said, yes, I was looking for a 40th wedding anniversary card. There were two ladies standing at the till. They said, a what? I said, a 40th wedding anniversary card. Oh, she said, don't be silly, those things don't exist. Those things don't exist. I said, well, actually, it's mine. It's my 40th wedding anniversary. They both looked at me with eyes like that, mouths open wide, and the lady said to me, listen, can you share your secret with us? What is your secret to 40 years of marriage? And I thought, here's my launching pad. Here's my launching pad. I said, do you really want to know my secret? She said, no, we really, really want to know. I said, only Jesus. Amen. Only Jesus. Because I can tell you today, I told them, and the lady at the tills, they were all like, oh. So she says, I said, if it wasn't for Jesus, I wouldn't be buying this card today. Wouldn't be buying this card. Never. I would have had those Nikes on, and I would have been out of here long ago. But I said, because of Jesus, because of the price He paid, and because of the grace of God upon my life, and because of what He's done in my life, and because I've given my life to my marriage, and my husband's given his life, and we all give our lives. So we're not in there to, what can I get? What can I get from my husband? You know, what does he owe me? Nothing. I don't owe you anything. You know. And she looked at me and she said to me, you should have a radio program. or a talk show. I just smiled at her. You know. No, she thought I was joking. So I said, it does exist. But I said, let me tell you, very difficult without Jesus. And so today I stand here in your beautiful church because of Jesus. And no other reason, Nadine. You know, there's no other reason. All my imperfections, and I know I've still got a road to walk. And if I somehow decide to take the broad road, I'm going to pay a price. So I'd rather stay on the narrow road. I'd rather continue trusting the Lord, crying to the Lord, taking His grace, getting into God's word for my life, knowing what's ahead of me, and focus on eternity. My mom just passed away 3 weeks ago. And she's gone to eternity. She told me about the flowers, the fields of flowers, the golden gates that she was looking at before she was going. And I just thought, wow, Mom. You know, she was 90. And I thought, she's going to a better place. But we get so focused here. This is here today, gone tomorrow. Here today and gone tomorrow. Eternity is what we need to live for. We need to be more eternity focused. And not gather. What can I gather? You know, I was telling Pete today, because I our places were all looted during the riots and the looting. And all my mum and dad's stuff, everything was taken. All their beautiful antique furniture, all gone. I never told my mum, ever. She'll never know, because her treasures are in heaven. But I said to Pete, because he was saying, oh, you need to try and hold your life and hold this and work for that, and just accumulate. I said, Pete, it's only when you look at something like that looting that we went through, where you've got everything today, and tomorrow, all gone. All gone. And nobody even warned you. It wasn't even a warning or a sign. It's gone. Then you realize it's not about here. It's about eternity. And when we can be eternity-minded and focused, it makes it so much more exciting to serve God and to see the people around us that are lost and are in desperate need of a touch from the Lord. So that's a little bit my life.